Hey y'all, it's Christy from Teadoddles, and today I'm going to go over how to um, measure yourself for a sewing pattern. So, first, I would like to say welcome new subscribers and welcome back subscribers. I'm happy to have you here with me in my maker shenanigans. I do like to do the sewing things, the yarny things, and the DIY things, so you will see a little of all of that here on this channel. Um, I I'm not gonna. I'm dressed. Let's talk about how you dress to measure yourself. Ideally, you would just be in your underwear. I'm not gonna be in my underwear on YouTube. So, if you have someone to help you, you may not, or you need someone to help you, you may not be comfortable with that. This shirt's a little loose for this. If you get something a little snugger, like maybe a tank top or a camisole or something that fits good. I do have on leggings. That's hard to see here. I'm having a hard time getting the camera far enough back so I can see what's going on, and so you can see part of me. The measurements I'm going to go over today are the basic ones. I'm going to talk about, there's a ton of measurements you can take, and usually that comes along when you figure out issues you're having with ready to wear, or RTW, if you see that somewhere, garments that you buy in the store. So if you've ever bought a pattern, I've got a few here to talk about the measurements they typically show on a pattern, okay? And what you need to do if you buy a pattern out of the store, these are patterns from McCall's, Butterick, and Vogue. So these are patterns designers you would typically see at like a Joann's or maybe Hobby Lobby or somewhere like that. So they have sizes listed on the front typically. On this one you can see 8, 10, 12, 14. It's right there. And this has an M in front of it, which means it's a Mrs. size, okay? And then this one has 18W through 24W on it, okay? Typically they have more than one size, and these patterns in the store, they usually have multiple options for your garment. This one from Vogue just has large, extra large, and extra, extra large sizes in it. So the reason I want to point that out is because if you go into the store and grab a pattern that is your typical ready-to-wear size, something that you would buy in the store, it's not gonna work. And I found this out through years of sewing. You always should look at the back for the measurements. That's why you need to take your measurements first before you go pick out a pattern. That way you know what size to pick up, because most patterns you buy in the store, they only come with a certain range of sizes, and you want to be sure your range of sizes in the pattern you pick up. PDF patterns that you can purchase online at some of these major companies now sell PDF patterns online as well. Most of them are indie designers or pattern companies that aren't as well known to those who don't sew garments. Well, I guess they can be known to people who sew garments more regularly, or they may not know those options exist. There are many different pattern designers out there, which gives you a lot of fun options to choose from instead of the standard things you see in the store. Some PDF companies, depending on who you buy from, for example, Style Arc, if you order one of their pre-printed patterns, which you can do, you can get 3 sizes within that one pattern. If you order a pattern online, you get 3 patterns to download as well, but they're in 3 different files. So you would only need to print out the one that's in your size. So whereas these type of patterns, and I'll go over how to read a pattern in another video, these type of patterns have multiple sizes laid on top of each other. Style Arc, you get an individual file for each size, but you do get 3 sizes, but they're sectioned. So you want to make sure they have the same garment and a bunch of different sizes available, so you want to make sure you get the correct size And you should base that on your measurements, not the size you pick off the rack in the store. It never matches. That's just like if you buy a garment in the store, pants from this brand and pants from this brand don't fit the same in the same size. I feel that women have more of a problem with this than men, and that's because women's sizes are like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that kind of thing. And by the way, if you didn't know, you see an odd size on garments such as 3, 5, or 7. That means it's junior sizing, which is a different sizing than misses or women or anything like that. Other women's sizes are typically in even 2, 4, 6, 8. So that's something else we have to deal with as a woman. Men's garments are typically sold by their measurements. Blue jeans are sold by their measurements. Their pants are sold by their measurements. Their shirts now can come in large, extra large, or something like that. If you look for a men's dress shirt, however, it is sold by a measurement. So I've had to buy them for my son before for dances and things. So women have a bigger problem with the sizes varying between things than men. It can still happen with men. It just happens more often with women. Now, if you turn, like for example, if I turn this pattern over here, let me get closer. I don't know if y'all are going to be able to see that. Up at the top, they give some basic measurements here. Bust, waist, hip. Those are the typical size measurements that are on any pattern that you buy. Bust, waist, and hip. Even if it's pants, sometimes they'll give you the inseam or how long the pant is from hip to ankle or wherever it's supposed to hit. But sometimes they don't. This is a dress pattern. This is a company, Colette Patterns. It's a dress, so, and they still give bust, waist, and hip measurements. And you'll see your size at the top. This is typical for most patterns. And it'll tell you what it is for each of those sizes, okay? So once you get your measurements down, then you'll go on here. And what I typically do, what I typically do, my hips are the widest part of me. So although my waist has come in some and my bust is not as large, I'm going to look at the hip measurement because it's the biggest portion of me. I can make adjustments for everything else. So if I cut it out to fit, if I go by the biggest point, I'll know what size to pick, and then I can make adjustments accordingly. So whatever the widest point of you is, that's the one you want to go with when you're picking your size for a printed pattern. If it's your bust, you go with that one. If it's your hips, if it's your waist, whichever one is the widest, because those are the three you're going to find almost any printed pattern or even PDF patterns when you look it up, is bust, waist, and hip. Okay? Everything else, they will sometimes list, like this one lists finished garment in inches, and it does list bust, waist. It has a sweep on here, which is different kind of, it has some different measurements on here. Sometimes they'll give you a finished length, waist to floor, or sometimes it's from shoulder to floor. It just depends on what the garment is and how it's made. Not all of them have finished garment measurements. For instance, this one says it's printed on the paper, on the tissue, on the pattern itself, the finished garment measurement. So you need to go with the measurements up under body measurements on the back of the pattern. Sometimes it's listed under sizes. This one is sizes. And the reason for this is because if you go by finished garment measurement, every pattern is designed to have a certain easement. So that means like this shirt is not completely fitted. It has so much ease over my waist measurement or over my body measurement. so that it fits a certain way. Leggings sometimes have negative ease. That's because it stretches. Okay, it's designed to fit very close fitting, right? It's not designed to be loose or have any fabric gathering or anything like that. So garments like that are usually have what they call negative ease. If you've done any crochet or knitting for sweaters, you know something about that because it stretches. This does have stretch because it's made of knit, but that's more so to pull it over my head and stuff and be able to move around in it. It's just a comfortable fabric. The other ease I'm talking about is the difference between how wide this garment is versus how wide I am. Okay, and that's what ease is. So every pattern has a certain ease. So if you look at the front of a pattern and you see this woman and you see how this fits her, that pattern is based on the finished garment fitting that way on a person. Doesn't matter what size you are, you can get a garment to fit you with that same easement if you make adjustments. So that's the point of sewing clothing. All right, so there are several places you can go to get like a guide for measuring. This one is from Berta Style, and this one covers your height, your bust. Does cover, all of them have bust, waist, and hip. There's more measurements that you really should take, especially if you have an area that or something that never fits right when you buy ready-to-wear garments. For instance, if I have an issue with the length of shirts because I'm just long-waisted, as I say. I have a tall waist, and every time I sew, I have to add about 2 inches to most patterns, depending on how I want them to fit. I want them to fit exactly like the pattern shows. I have to add 2 inches, and I know this because I've been sewing for myself a long time, and that's not something that's going to change as I age. Not really. It can, because everything compresses as you age, so you could get, it could change, but it's not going to change as much as, like, your weight would fluctuate. Okay, so anytime I do a pattern, I know I'm going to have to add 2 inches to the waist. That's just a common alteration for me. If you buy clothing and you find that it's always too tight in your arms, I have that issue sometimes as well. Sometimes I buy bigger things just so it will sit over my hips correctly, and then I have issues with the way it fits up here because I'm not as big up here, and I can usually make an alteration to make it fit better. So anything like that require usually different kinds of measurements, and having all these measurements on record just makes it easier when you get ready to alter a pattern to go ahead and take those measurements where you have problem areas. Not necessarily problem areas, just you need a different fit. Let's just put it that way. And you can go ahead and measure the pattern and see if you're going to have to make an alteration so it fits better. So it makes all of that preparation takes time, and I will show you how to do those things. And it can be time consuming, but once you get a pattern altered, then it's easier to do other patterns, and you're going to be happier with your results. I have sewn plenty of things. I've shown y'all some things that I sewed incorrectly, but that was mostly because of my impatience. I know how to do it correctly. If I'm sewing for someone else, I definitely take all the measurements to make sure it fits correctly. I just have a hard time doing that for myself. So this is going to help me out, hopefully, to be more responsible when I'm sewing for myself. I did make this shirt, by the way. This is another blank slate t-shirt. I highly recommend this pattern for beginner sewists. It's 2 pieces. The sleeves are already made onto it, so you don't have to set in sleeves or anything like that. Very easy to adjust, so I highly recommend this as a first time top for sewists. It's very satisfying to make. I did put an iron-on image on it, which has almost completely faded off. I don't know. It was something I bought in the store. Maybe I didn't do something correct when I did it. I don't know. But so on this particular pattern, you will also find, besides the typical bust, waist, and hip measurements, you also find your height. Now, when I say bust, as a man, any men sewists I have out there, you don't have to worry. You still have a chest measurement, whether you know. You don't have a difference between your regular chest and bust. But if you are a man who has built up pecs, let's put it that way, you could have issues with shirts that way too. So you should always know your chest measurement. And chest measurement is going to be right across the apex of your bust. You typically, if it's a fitted shirt, you're going to want it up under here too, okay? And I'll show you that in just a moment. It makes a big difference for bras as well, but that's something I'm still learning to sew. But if you have to buy a bra as a woman, you know that the difference between this measurement and the measurement across your bust is your cup size, okay? And you can find references for that online. So any of these measurements I'm talking about can apply to anybody. That's really the only major difference between a man and a woman, because everybody has different sizes all over, okay? So when I'm talking about bust, I'm talking about the apex, the widest point of your chest, okay? This one has height, which height is going to be from your head to your toes. There are some garments that you would need to know that for. If you're putting a hood on something, and a cape, a hooded cape or something like that, you might want to know that, but it's just a good thing to know. Back length, which back length is from your neck to your hip, or to your waist, I'm sorry, from your neck to your waist. And your waist is generally across your belly button, okay? It's not always the narrowest part of you. My narrowest part is more up in here. My waist across your belly button. That's where you want to measure for your waist measurement, so that things hit you correctly. This one also has sleeve length, which sleeve length is from here to your shoulder, but you want to bend your arm when you do it, okay? That way, when you're it moves a little bit, so your sleeve is still hitting in a good place whenever you move your arm. And plus, you want to be able to have that movement. That's why you measure it with your arm bent, okay? Because you want that to move, all right? Neck width, which would be around your neck. If you have a problem with things fitting too tight in your neck, that is a very important thing to know. If you're doing a fitted shirt, especially for a man, a button-up shirt, like I said, they put neck widths in shirts for a reason, because men tend to have wider necks. It's just more common. Side leg length, and that's going to be from your waist or where your pants hit. Some people like to wear their, if you're doing hip huggers, it's gonna be different. But a lot of people wear them to their waist down to your ankle. Okay, that is your hip, your side leg length. And then you would also have an inseam, which is from your crotch to your ankle. Okay, because sometimes you have to make adjustments, and I've had to do this for people before. And a lot of times those are the way clothes fit you. Because if you'll notice, anytime I wear a top, so I've been standing here for a little bit, my neckline always shifts to this side. I don't care what kind of shirt I wear, especially if it does that. It has to do with the way I stand more than the way my body is made. We tend to lean to one side, or we do things like this, and over time your body just goes that way, or it goes a different way. There are ways to adjust that, like a chiropractor or something like that can adjust those things. So if things like that bother you, then you're going to have a different measurement on one side than the other. My little Mima, Teadoddles, she had one leg that was shorter than the other because she had polio when she was a child. So she definitely didn't need her pants to be as long on one side as the other. So, which can be accomplished by just simply taking a hem in more or something like that if you buy ready to wear. So if you have an issue with one side being longer or something, that's important to do both sides. If you feel like everything's fairly the same, we're not symmetrical creatures typically. It's usually pretty close, but there's occasions where it's not. So you're going to want to do both sides. Front waist length, that is from your neckline to your waist, and you want to go across the apex of your bust to include that in that length. Okay, you don't go down between or off to the side, you go right across the apex of your bust. Okay, bust point, which typically only applies to a woman, but if you're a man and you're making a fitted shirt and you have big pecs, this will be a factor for you as well. And that's from your neck to, or basically your shoulder, your neck, to the point of to the apex of your bust. Okay, so that is those measurements. You don't have to have that for every garment you sew. Like this t-shirt, it doesn't really matter. But if it's a fitted garment and it has seam work in it, that is something that you're going to want to know, because it fits better if you know that, and you've got to make adjustments maybe. Okay, if you want it to go out further. And I'm going to show y'all, when I start talking about pattern grading, a pair of leggings I made that I had to grade for my butt because my butt sticks out a good bit, and if I want something to actually come up to my waist and not be hanging down and giving me plumber's crack, basically, I have to adjust to go around that curve. Okay, so I had to do it on that, and it looks really weird sometimes, but if you do it right and you take into account it's some math you got to do, it works out really well. So I will talk about that some more when I talk about pattern grading. And upper arm circumference. So I have more going on in here, which I'm hoping that weight class I'm taking is going to help with that little wing I got going on here. But my arms, I have always had issues with, especially the tops that have elastic in that stops right here. They've always been too snug for me a lot of times, and that's just because my upper arm is wider than the standard ready to wear garment. I wouldn't feel bad about a ready to wear anything not fitting you correctly, because it's based on whatever model they started with and they graded out from that. So and that's why everyone's different, because every designer starts with somebody different to start their pattern off. So that's everything that's on that one, and those are great measurements. So this is a basic one. This is one you can, I think this is still available online. I'm going to link to several different ones, and you can pick one that you like the best. It's just a great thing to keep with you, and this one comes in a card format that you could perhaps keep in your purse when you go to the store. So if you're buying patterns in the store, you'll more easily pick out your sizing. And just for an example, in the store, if I buy pants in the store, I typically wear, I think, a 16-18, okay? And shirts, I can get some, I was buying a 2X in some shirts, and that's just because I have broad shoulders and I'm trying to get around my hips, and then I can take up anything if I need to. I can do a 1X now. On a pattern, typically, like for example in Style Arc, I have to have a 24. That's why I said don't worry about that number. That's just a number, okay? Because when you make clothes for yourself and you make them to fit you, you feel so much better. I'm just honest. And when I make something and I go out and someone says, "Hey, I like your shirt," and I say, "Hey, I made it. Thank you very much." You know, and it fits me correctly more correctly than a garment from the store would, that just makes it better. Nobody cares what size it is. Nobody has to know that, okay? I'm just telling you that for an example. Anybody I have ever made garments for, even guys, well, guys, like I said, their clothing is usually sized by their measurements anyway, so I don't have as many issues with that. If I measure them, I can pick out a pattern for them because it's based on measurements anyway. But for a woman, since our sizes are numerical for some reason, not based on measurements, any woman I've ever made anything for, their size is bigger in my pattern than what they pick up in ready to wear. And that's because the ready to wear industry has just bolstered their easement and stuff in the stores and things, and that's why. So I just wanted to give that example so that nobody gets out there feeling bad about their pattern size being so much bigger than whatever size they picked up off the rack. Okay, it's not going to be the same. It's going to be bigger. I haven't ever measured anyone or made anything for anybody where it wasn't bigger than the size. Save for guys. Like I said, there's their measurements anyway. I've made many things for my son, and I don't have to, his measurement is his measurement. Like they wear 32, 34 pants. That's what it is. So, only difference is easement, like relaxed fit or skinny jean or something like that. You know, that's just how close it is to your body. So, to measure yourself, you do need a measuring tape. I suggest a larger one. This one is 120 inches. It just is easier to grab hold of and get around you. I used to have one that you could pull around and it had a little slot you could put the end in, so it would be right on you. So if it's harder for you to measure yourself, then you could use something like that. I'll put a link to something like that down below. I think mine broke, but I used it a lot. So I'm just going to show you the basic 3 measurements: hip, waist, and bust. Okay, so I have to stand back. I don't know if you're going to be able to see my hips, but what you want to do for your hips, the widest point, okay, and maybe you can fill that out a little bit. I'm going to just pull it, and if you have a booty like I do, you want it to go across the point of your butt that sticks out the most, okay, because that's going to give you the widest point of your hips. And if you have a hard time finding your hips, if you can stick it out, and if you can feel, I can sort of feel my bone. I mean, it's that's how you can find your hip, okay? It's really just the widest part of the lowest part of your body. Well, that's not true, because the lowest part is your feet, but I think you'll get what I'm saying. So you go around just like that, all right? And you take a measurement. And what I usually do is, it's easier if you stand in front of a mirror to do this, but if you can't, I just try to hold it over my finger, and I'll have my measurement, and then you can write it down on your chart, okay? I'm not going to tell y'all maybe can see what measurement, it doesn't matter. So now for your waist, like I said, you want to measure across your belly button. Even if it's wider than you don't want the narrowest part, because if you go by the nearest part measurement, you're gonna have pants that come up under here. If you're like me and it's up here, my waist is bigger than here. So you don't want to do that. All right. So we just pull it around across my belly button. So something I like to do when I do a waist measurement, or somebody else, sometimes I'll put a string around them and have them walk, because sometimes it pulls and it settles, because some people will try to suck things in. Don't do that, because you're probably not going to be sucking in the whole time you're wearing something. So you want to find it where it settles pretty nicely, because since my butt goes out like this, you see how my waist comes up like this. So that's the measurement I would take for my waist. And then for the bust, like I said, you want to come back across the apex of your chest and you do the same thing. Okay, this is another one where you may, when I measure someone else, I have them kind of do this a little bit, and all that does is just, it makes it, the measurement just a little bit bigger because you can have that movement, if that makes sense. Okay, that's the measurement I would write down. So those are the 3 you're going to find on printed patterns. Those are the basic 3 you're going to find on PDF patterns. So those are the ones you definitely want to know before you buy a pattern. And you would, like I said, whatever your widest measurement is, pick the pattern size based on that, because then you can make adjustments for the smaller parts. Now this is another one, and I don't remember where I got this from. I'm hoping I can find it again. This is a more comprehensive measurement system, or measurements for things. If you're going to do any fitted anything, this one covers everything. There's even a distance between the apex of your chest. That's got to do with if you have princess seams or something coming down and you want them to be in the right place. There is also a waist front to back, which goes around under here. This little round measurement here. That is important if you have issues in that area, because everything's curved through there, and it can, if you have problems with pants that want to go, they always seem to be too short in the front or too short in the back. That's what that's about. Okay. So this one just has a more comprehensive, you know, they do the elbow width, they do the wrist width, they do a seated width, a distance from waist to where your butt is seated. And that, if you're doing really tailored garments, like a suit or something, this is something you need. Otherwise, you can do just basic stuff. It just depends on what you're sewing. So I think that's everything I wanted to tell y'all. If you have any questions about measuring yourself or picking patterns, please let me know in the comments down below. This went a little longer than I intended, but I hope it has enough information. I do see all those short videos that tell you stuff real quick, but I feel like while they're easy to watch, I feel like information gets left out that you might need. So like I said, if I left out anything that you have questions about, please let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you in the next video.